Welcome to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast with your host, Brett Bovin. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy the show.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. Man, it seems like a minute since we've actually done a real hunting show now. Last week, Tuesday, we couldn't do a show because my power went out because the wind just went like a little power goes out. That's just awesome. That's what you're generally going to typically get with the energy service that I pay for, which it seems like I spend $1,000 for it, but yet I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. That pisses me off. Anyways, it is September 3, Tuesday. Man, we're at episode 101. It seems like the other day we were just starting back up with the Whitetail Advantage Podcast, and now we're already past 101. I mean, past 100. So it's an amazing feeling. Anyways, this is a show for all hunters and outdoorsmen alike where we can get together, share stories, and learn strategies. We like to call it the electronic campfire here. If you have any questions, comments, or anything like that, feel free to drop them in the comment section, and the Deucer and I will pop them up during the show, and we'll address them as we come along. If you ever want to be a guest on the show, feel free to reach out to us on our social media platforms, or you can send a message, an email to brettbovin@whitetailadvantage.com. We also have a saying on the show, put your cord in the slot machine. What we simply mean by that is to help share the show. I strongly believe hunting is a dying sport. It's a dying lifestyle, especially here in the state of Michigan. So all we ask is help get us one new friend. That's all we ask. We just want one new friend. All the episodes that we've done so far, I've built up so many great relationships with so many people. And for instance, the Squatch, he's become my brother now. And I like talking to him, and he's just an amazing, humble guy. And I'm looking forward to talking with Josh tonight. And I have a feeling it's going to be the same way. We also have, if you use the code GP10, you can get 10% discount off Gilly Puck products. Also, go check out MAGNUS BROADHEADS and Grizz Media because they're going to be helping us relaunch Whitetail Advantage into the future. New photos, videos, new Whitetail Advantage website. We're looking forward to working with Jesse. He's become a good friend of mine now, so here in the state of Michigan. So it's amazing. Anyways. That intro is all done. We all know that I can't stand doing the intros. I hate them. They're annoying. But anyways, it's episode 101, I mean. And we're in Ohio. And let's get done with me jibber-jabbering. Let's bring our guest in for tonight. Deucer, let's bring him in for tonight, buddy. What is up, Josh?
Hey, Brent. Thanks for having me on. Deucer,
thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks to you, too.
So, for anyone that doesn't know you, can you give a little background about yourself?
Yeah. We'll do a little introduction here. I'm sure most people don't know me. Like, who the heck is this guy? But my name is Josh Luck. I am from Southern Ohio. I am 31 years old. I turned 32 in a couple months here, 3 months actually. That's pretty much the gist. I'm a physical therapist. That is my full-time career. I have a wife and a little one. He turns 2 in November. So just kind of a normal family guy. Grew up hunting Ohio and been hunting since I was about 10 years old. And yeah, I've taken a few deer over the years.
Wow, we're basically the same age. I turned 31 at the end of this month, September 27th.
Yeah, I tell you what, in the past few months, I've had a few people, or like whether I was at, some store or something, like, oh, how old are you? And I had to like stop and think about it because I wanted to say 30. I was like, whoa. Like, hold on, I'm getting ready to turn 32.
It feels weird. So a lot of people know that I like to play golf as my downtime. And I remember when I was getting into golf, like 25, 26 years old, I was like, all right, there's the ball. It's right there. It's 300 yards away. It's going to be right there. Now it's like, crap. It got off the tee. I have no idea where you went, man. I'm so sorry. It's like, man, I can't stand it. It's weird getting old. I don't feel like it. I feel like a kid at heart still, but my joints, they crackle and pop here and there still, but it's just weird.
Yeah, I feel you there. I don't feel like my age, like, at all. I still view myself as like in my early 20s, and I'll be talking to guys and chatting with them, and in my head I'm like, man, this guy seems older than me. And then I ask them their age, and they're like 6 years younger than me, and I'm like, holy cow, am I that old? It's like once you hit 30, 30 is like the magic number. Like once you hit 30, things start going downhill. I think after I hit 30 is when I started getting some random aches and pains. My vision is a little bit worse. I mean, I'm wearing glasses right now, but after 30, my eyes, I've worn contacts since the 5th grade, but for some reason, once I hit 30, my eyes became really sensitive to my contacts, and I can only stand them in my eye within a day, and I have to take them out. What else? I'm very sensitive to sugar now. Like I can't have like a ton of sugar. It doesn't sit well with my system. All this weird stuff.
It's weird because like for me, I like to sleep on my right side, and I'm a right-handed guy, and never woke up with pains for the most part. I mean, you wake up sore, but now I wake up and I'm just like dragging my arm. I'm just like, come on, man. I'm just smacking my shoulder. I'm like, wake up, you're still alive. It's just like, man, getting old, man, sucks. But I still, like I said, I still don't feel like it, even though I'm in pain for the most part of the day.
Yep. I hear you there.
Well, man, let's dive into your hunting style here for a little bit. I don't like using the term, oh, you're a public land hunter, you're a private land hunter, but where do you see yourself majority of the time hunting, private or public?
So I'll kind of give you my hunting background on how my style has developed over the years. Because I think that's a good place to start for the listeners to kind of see this progression over time. So there, in my family, there's not a lot of hunters. I have some like distant cousins that would hunt, but my father introduced me to hunting, but he didn't get into hunting until he was like 17 or 18. And some of the cousins that he had that showed him, like in Ohio, it's legal to bait. So that's pretty much how he grew up hunting, like over bait piles when it was legal. And that's how he kind of learned. So fast forward to, when I was born, and I got to the age where I could go out hunting with them and do different things like that. That's how I learned. I started hunting around the age of 10. I took my first whitetail with a bow, with a compound bow. My dad wasn't big into guns, so I've never taken a deer with a gun. But I took my first deer with a compound bow at the age of 12. Yeah, I was 12. And then at least one doe like every year after that, or every other year. But that pretty much from the time I was 10 until about 2018, 2019. That's hunted small parcels in Ohio over bait. That's pretty much how I grew up hunting and how I've spent most of my quote unquote hunting career. The primary piece I hunted on private growing up was just a 5-acre parcel, but it was like a big rectangle. It was long, right? It might have been 70 yards across. So I was very constricted and confined. And then there were, all the neighbors around us hunted and they baited too. So that also went into the baiting, right? Because we had to figure out a way, because at the time, like we didn't know anything about habitat management or anything like that. So we used the bait piles to kind of, direct their travel through our small piece. And then in 2019, so during this time, I was in school quite a bit too. So I didn't spend like a ton of time learning about hunting, just what I've been shown growing up. And so I have a doctorate degree. Like I said earlier, I'm a physical therapist. So it wasn't really until I finished up with grad school, or about my last year of grad school, is when I started to dive into like learning about whitetails and really trying to hone my skills, so to speak. And about the same time, my parents had gotten a different piece of ground in Ohio. It was 23 acres, I think is what it technically is. And that was about the time I started paying more attention to things. About probably 2017, around the year 2017 is when I started paying attention to wind hunting, only hunting on certain winds, and at that time it was, whatever the wind was good for me, to where I know I wouldn't get busted by a deer. and transition into on this new piece in 2019, started, really figuring out like, oh, when I'm hunting the wind, it's not really what's best for me. I need to figure out what's best for these bucks, but also good for me, whether it be, my access or where I've set up to where I'm just off wind, and to get an opportunity of these deer, because they would tend to come through this property on northern winds. So as I was, practicing these different things, I started to gain more consistency. So in 2019, I killed like a 132-inch 8-point off of that new piece of private that we had. And then in 2020, I killed 142-inch. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. He was 141-inch 9-point. In 21, I killed a 147-inch 12 off of that piece of property. So as I dove into the learning, that's when I started to get more consistency as far as like the quality of deer and consecutive years of killing a good buck. Now, like I said earlier, I was in grad school at the time, and I had just finished in 2019, and my wife was finishing grad school. So I would travel to that private piece I was just talking about. But my wife and we got married in 2019, and we moved briefly to Kentucky. About the end of 2019 into 2020, we moved to Kentucky, and I wanted to hunt in Kentucky. I'd never hunted in Kentucky before, and all I had available to me was public. I didn't have any permission pieces or anything like that, and I had some buddies that hunted public in Ohio and Kentucky and different states. And I had a buddy that lived in Kentucky, and he was kind of showing me a few pieces, a few WMAs, and I was like, okay, what do I do? I'd never done this before. Like, I was, like I said earlier, I was starting to get into really learning about whitetails, their behaviors and different stuff like that. And all my buddies told me was just, the deer are there, go find them. It's probably the best piece of advice I ever gotten. I see all these people online that it's like, well, what do I do? Like, where do I go? And they ask a lot, but I'll tell you, the best piece of advice I ever got was figure it out for yourself. And that's what I've tried to do since then. So in 2020 was my first year really hunting public. And I did the whole, postseason scouting, try to find sign, scrapes, rubs, stuff like that. And that first year on public in Kentucky, I got my ass whipped. Like, hardly saw a deer on this piece. Now it was a small piece, and it was fairly high pressure. Probably not the best piece to go to my first year hunting, but I learned quite a bit and got my ass kicked. And there were 2 deer on this piece that I was going after. One was probably mid 160s. I'd found some decent tracks and hung some cameras on it, and I found a mid 160s buck, and then another buck that scored 150 inches. I know he was 150 because I found his dead head the following year. But I had like one half encounter with that 150-inch deer on public. It was like 20 minutes before daylight around the rut. And that was about it. And then after that, I just got the bug. I'm like, man, this is really hard, really challenging. It's a lot different than hunting private and the tactics I was using on private. So my strategy over time has just kind of stemmed from that. I dove deeper into learning, listening to, different podcasts, watching different YouTube videos, talking to lots of people, and just trying to hone that skill set of getting on some of these pressured whitetail on public pieces. And so in 21, I said I killed that buck in Ohio, that 147. In 22, I didn't kill in Ohio on that private piece. I kind of messed that up on a deer I had named Richard. But I was successful in Kentucky. I killed my first public land buck was a 136-inch 9-point, like a beautiful, just wide chocolate rack. And I killed him on my second sit in September in the morning when people are saying you're not supposed to hunt early season mornings. And then in Ohio, that year I started hunting more public in Ohio, branching out from that private piece because I was limited by property lines, and the deer they don't bed on that property. So what I found out, scouting public and hunting public was like, I'm not bound by these property lines. I just got to find the deer. And once I find them, I can, go after them. Right? I don't have to sit and wait and worry about spooking them off the property or anything like that. So I started hunting more public in Ohio. And in 23, I killed a nice, I want to say he was an 8 or 9. Killed a nice buck on a new public piece. I'd only been there 3 times. I'd scouted it a few times, and sat, 3 total times on that piece before I killed on it. And that kind of leads into this year. So I hunt to answer your question, right? I hunt a mix of private and public in Ohio and in other states. Well, mainly public in other states, but in Ohio, I still do private and public.
Well, side note real quick, my wife and I got married in October of 2019 as well. The same year. I don't know what month you guys got married, but that's when we got married. So
it was June of that year.
But yeah, it sounds like you kind of hit the ground running, where in the sense of, I'm going to go to public, throw myself in the mix of all of it, and really do my best to study the whitetail deer. And you basically live by where I say, if you really want to be a good hunter, you have to know the whitetail deer inside and out. You know the biology of a deer, you're going to become a better hunter than anyone that just goes out there and starts learning to hunt in a general aspect of it. Because if you know what a deer is doing inside, physically and emotionally and all this other stuff, and you know what they're doing month in and month out and year to year, you're definitely going to be way ahead of the game compared to people that are out there just, all right, how am I going to try to hunt? How am I going to become a better hunter? All right, I'm just going to be looking for signs and stuff like that type of guy. But if you know the deer inside and out, I always say, if you know your opponent, you're going to become a better person. I mean, a better competitor. Mm-hmm. Same aspect comes to hunting. And it seems like that's what you did. Hunting in public land, compared to private land, it's 10 times harder because you just don't know where to go, compared to the deer on private land, where it's like, you know what, I'll sit in this spot for a year or two and see where they're moving. All right, I see they're moving on that side of the property. So what's going on over there? All right, I'll move closer over there. And that's what it sounds like you've really been doing, and kind of been honing your craft on public land and adapting it into your private property as well.
Yeah, I will say, like I said, I spent a lot of time in school, so I do have a passion for just learning in general. And after grad school, I kind of took that passion for learning and just turned it towards whitetails. And that's really helped with everything. And then that has not only improved my efficiency on private, but I feel like it's kind of fast-tracked some of my efficiency on public. Now, if someone says I'm inexperienced on public, I'm not going to argue with them, because I've only been hunting public since early 21. I postseason scouted some in 2020, and then I guess really 2021 is when I dove quite heavy into it. But since 21, I've killed 2 pretty nice bucks off of public in 2 different states, and I think I'm going to get it done in at least in one state this year. If not, I plan on hunting Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana. Now, I'm not going to count my chickens before the eggs hatch, but I feel confident in one of those states I will get a deer down.
Well, that's part of hunting, though, is the confidence in your ability to, like, you know what, it's going to happen this year. You can't just go into the hunting season where it's just like, well, I don't know, let's just see what happens. I mean, I get that mentality of it, but it's like, you got to go into it. It's like, I'm going to make it happen. I don't care how it happens. I'm going to close the deal on a buck this year. So it's a mental game as well. And I say, where it's like, if you shoot at a deer and you miss, don't let that downfall deter you from going back out hunting. Use it as a motivator to become a better hunter, learn more, read more, study more, and get back out there. Like I said, use it as a motivator. But it sounds like you're doing that already. You have the motivation. It's like, it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think I'm just stubborn. When I have a goal in mind, I'm like, man, I want to reach it. And if I fail, It's easy to kind of kick yourself when you're down, but you got to take it as like a learning point. It's like, okay, like, why did I fail in this scenario? Whenever you're hunting, I don't care if it's private, public, just keep asking yourself why, and you'll start honing some of these skills if you ask yourself why and try and seek those answers, right? And those come with failures too. It's like, I messed up on this buck, why? What happened? What did I do? How can I learn from it? How can I be better? Like, did I mess up my access? Was my wind not right? Was I thought the thermals were doing one thing and they ended up doing something else, something along those lines. So there's always a learning experience in there.
Now, with you hunting public land and private land, how do you manage? Well, let me first ask this question. I'm assuming you use trail cameras.
Yeah.
How do you manipulate or manage your trail cameras on public land and private land?
So the one piece I primarily hunt in Ohio that's private. It's like I said, my father hunts and he lives there, obviously. So we usually share some cell cameras, and we'll have a few out on the property. And I've hunted there enough to where I know that property is mainly a rut funnel. There's some does that bed on or close to it, and frequent there often. But I know the bigger bucks in the area bed on a property or two over, and won't appear until late October. So we'll throw some cell cameras up there, and I won't even touch that piece until late October. Like I was there the other day, checking stands and stuff, and helping my dad get some old stuff down, making sure everything is safe. But other than that, like I don't need to step foot on it until like October 25th, or if there's a nice cold front that aligns with that last week of October, that's when I'll sit for the first time there. But like I said, that's mainly just how the property sets up and what I've learned over time from my kills I've had there and from trail cam data. Now on public, I tend to have like kind of a small fleet of non-cellular cameras. I like to leave cams soak and try and gather some historical data. At least that's what I've kind of, since I've been hunting public, that's what I've been leaning towards. Over the past year or two, I've been dabbling with moving them around quickly to try and get on bucks quickly. But typically, I like to leave them out and let them soak for data purposes. But I'll take. Oh, let's see this. I'll give an example of the public piece that I hunted in Ohio. It's the same piece I killed a buck off of last year, and I'm kind of picking out some different areas on this piece. It's fairly large, but I took, let's see, like 5. I had postseason scouted, and marked what I thought sign was pertinent, whether it be a scrape, rubs, whether they were probably early season or made during like the rut or something. Identifying different food sources. I tend to put the cameras on scrapes, is what I typically will put them on, to gather inventory. And if you're on the right scrape, you will find bucks in daylight that use it often. Not necessarily pawing the ground, but the licking branch. They'll use the licking branch pretty often. But I'll put a fleet of SD cams out in different areas and try and locate some bucks. And then once I start getting them, like I'll leave them out for a month or two. So this year on that piece, I actually haven't had time to pull those cameras on that public piece. I'll probably pull them here in the next few weeks. But I've been leaving them soak for 2 or 3 months, right? So, and I'll go collect them, sift through the photos, figure out if there are good deer in the area. And then once I identify an area that has good bucks, then I might pull some of the cameras out that didn't get the data I wanted, and then kind of place them around where I think that buck might be hanging out. Yeah, but I typically don't use, I'll rephrase this. I just started using cell cams on public like this year. All previous years were just cheapo. The wild views that are like $20, $25. Those are like my favorite cameras to use on public because I just need them to take a photo or video, and that's it. I don't need them to do anything else because they get the data. They do very well, and I'm not like if someone steals it, I don't really care because it's $20. Whereas cell camera, I'm probably going to get pretty pissed if someone steals that. But some of these out-of-state places, I've started hanging some cell cams just because it's when you drive hours to get to a piece, you can't check those cameras often, so it's a lot easier to leave a cell cam, let it soak, and you can get the data that way.
Right. PSE Mobile Hunter made a comment here. Says I leave multiple cell cams with solar backup all year.
Yeah, if so I would do that on the private piece. Personally, you can do that on public, and I know people that will, especially if you're in areas that don't get a lot of pressure, or if you're in an area that you don't think too many guys will go back to. But nowadays, there's not too many places guys won't go, and I'd rather keep a low profile. The solar panels can stick out quite a bit, so I tend to hang them 10 foot or so. I'll take a stick with me, get the camera kind of higher up in the tree, and I don't like to leave like a large profile where someone can easily see it.
I do have a couple questions here.
Yeah.
That someone messaged me saying. First one is, what is your opinion on the use of technology in hunting, such as trail cameras and GPS devices?
So I'm assuming, is there more to that? Is there?
I have like a whole list of questions here.
So with that first question, I think there's a fine line. Technology is here to stay just because that's kind of the natural advancement of things. I don't see anything wrong with using, cell cameras or anything like that. Or what was the other part? Or GPS devices. So I'm assuming something like an Onyx or Spartan Forge or something like that. I don't see anything wrong with that. I would say, it's not like back in the day, especially with the GPS stuff or the satellite imaging stuff. It's not back in the day, you used to print maps and stuff, and there's a lot of work involved, reading those county maps and the topo lines and stuff. And applications like that has made it easier for guys, but there's still a learning curve. There's a couple of different things, a couple of different arguments with those, right? Some people would argue that the technology is making things too easy for guys, and it's taking away from that connection with the deer and being close and going out and working for it and different things like that. So there's the argument that it's making it too easy. There's also the argument that as we get younger generations coming up, they're already used to all this technology, so it's an kind of an easy segue to get extra hunters in, right? If you make it too difficult, right, you may not get some of this younger generation, which I'm all for working hard. And that I'm just simply saying that I think it can promote new hunters getting in, because the learning curve isn't as steep as what it used to be. I am for it. There are certain things, I guess this past year, right, there's been quite a few controversies out on cell cameras with states trying to ban them. I want to say the year before, was it Nevada that banned cell cameras because there was too many people putting it on water holes? Or was it Arizona?
I want to say it was Nevada.
Yeah.
That
kind of stuff. I'm fine. Like if it's affecting the wildlife, yes. But as far as you get in these Midwest states, cell cameras are becoming cheaper, more easier to get. Heck, Moultrie Mobile had like a sale. They're like August sale, and so you can get two edges for like $99, right? So the cell cams are becoming very easy to get. So more and more people have them. I kind of forgot where I was going with that, but we're going to see them more, and I don't see any correlation with more cell cameras equating to like higher deer harvest rates. So
I
that's,
agree with that.
yeah, I don't see that. Some people would say like, oh, like, but you get all these cell cameras out there. You can't go anywhere in the woods without getting your picture taken. Yeah. And some people will make the argument that, it's making it too easy and they get a deer on camera and they go out and they can kill it right away. Those instances are very few and far between, even on private. Like, you can get a picture of a buck. Like, I could go to my dad's place, right, that I was talking about, that private piece. And like, to get to a stand, it's only 20 acres. So it's not hard to get there. I could get a picture of a buck on camera being there during hunting season, and that does not guarantee in any way, shape, or form that I could go kill him, right? Because there's only so many places I can access, and like, it would have to depend on the wind. I can't just like go trespass on like a neighbor's property to try and get the wind in my advantage or something. There's so many instances that you would, it's, the odds are against you more often than not. I just don't see the cell cameras equating to like more kills or anything like that. But personal opinion, I don't see anything wrong with them. I think it's up to the individual hunter whether or not how they choose to use it, and as far as like abusing it or something. Now, drones, I do feel like we get to a gray line with drones, or this kind of, hazy line where things aren't defined as much. We'll probably see more regulations come out as far as drones go, especially with like thermal or, recovery and stuff like that. That's kind of another whole issue, because guys can be like, I'm going out to find my deer, right? And they'll send a drone up and see where, the deer are bedding, like the buck they're after is bedding on their, like, where is he at and stuff like that. And maybe they'll go in and try and make a move on him the next day. Like, that stuff I don't agree with, but
Right.
Again, developing regulations around those can be difficult.
I think here in Michigan, I don't think they're allowed to be used in hunting. I think they're illegal.
Yeah, in some states they'll have a blanket rule where it's like you can't use them at all.
Hey, I just read this email come through. So, hey, Deucer, let's go into news around the world segment.
News around the world.
So I got this notification here. It says, Idaho hunters kill grizzly bear after one hunter is attacked. Goes on to state, an archery hunter in Idaho was knocked to the ground and bitten by a grizzly bear on Sunday, but he and his partner pulled his sidearms and killed the bear. Both men dialed 911 after the incident, as Monday afternoon, the injured hunter was recovering from non-life-threatening wounds at Eastern Idaho Regional Medical Center. According to the Idaho Department of Fish and Game, the hunters were targeting elk west of Henry's Lake in Island Park when the attack occurred. Both men were able to utilize their sidearms to shoot the bear, deterring the attack. Fish and Game explained it in a news release. Conservation officers responded to the scene and determined that the hunters acted in self-defense during a surprise encounter with the bear from a very close distance. And that's actually interesting because I talked to, his name is Bam from Idaho. He said most people that actually are in these type of situations where it's an actual true life or death situation, they won't even call that because it's basically life in prison if you shoot a grizzly. And because it's just like, it's so hard to prove, obviously, of like, oh, was it in self-defense or not? And he was telling me, like, yeah, a lot of people don't do that, but to read this and for them to find out that, yeah, they were acting in self-defense in a good way, obviously. And I hope everyone's okay now from this attack. But wow, that's, man.
I saw that pop up online. I think I was scrolling through Facebook or something and saw that. You said it happened on Sunday?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I wanted to say I saw it yesterday or something pop up online, because there was pictures of the guy. He had like blood coming down his arm, or his arm was wrapped up, and then you saw the bear in the background laying on the ground.
Deucer, if you can find a photo of that and pop it up, that'd be great. But yeah, that's a scary moment, man.
Yeah.
Out west hunting, man, with this grizz running around. I don't know, man. That's a tough one. I give it props to everyone out there hunting with those things running around.
Yeah, as I get a little older, I want to go out west more and experience that more, especially as they're taking away these over-the-counter tags. I need to start buying more points, but I want to try and go out west more often. But stories like that, also like I have taken my concealed carry course and done all that, but I never went and got it. So I need to retake it and get it so I can actually carry. I mean, I just to have everything done in a legal manner as I'm crossing state lines, but I need to get it so that way I can carry out west when I need it.
I did have a good question here. How do you handle the emotional aspect of hunting, such as taking the life of an animal?
So when I was younger, I don't think I thought about it as much. Right. I would still, when I would get, just a deer would come in and my heart would start racing and, just get all jacked and, shoot the animal. And then like, it's like, yeah, like I did it. I killed it. But I never thought like too much about taking the animal's life. But the older I've gotten, the more like I think I realize it or think about it. I tend now, and I've done this since, I don't know, I'm trying to think how, maybe the past 10 years or so. Anytime I take an animal, like I'll kneel next to it and, say thank you. And, thank you for allowing me to, be out there and harvest you and, take the meat back to my family and stuff like that. And I don't know, there's the older I've gotten, I just feel like there's more this deeper connection with the animal. You spend all this time trying to prepare, and you play this chess match with a buck. It's kind of a large, like, emotional toll when you really sit and think about it. And it's like, wow, you just took the life of something, and that there's significance in that. My father, he likes to I always get on him because he doesn't shoot anything, and he hasn't shot a buck in a long time. I'm like, what are you doing out there? Just sitting and watching these deer? And half the time he will. He's never killed anything big, and he'll pass deer. And I'm like, why? Like, that would have been your biggest deer. Like, why didn't you shoot that deer? But now as I get older, like I think I understand. He likes to go out there and just kind of watch, and just kind of be in the moment with the deer and nature and all that. So, I don't know, as far as handling the emotional toll or anything like that, afterwards I sit and think to myself, say thank you, and try and, give respect to the animal wherever I can. And that could be different to some people. Some, over the past, I guess, couple of years, I've started to butcher my own deer. I mean, my father's a butcher by trade, so I'll take it over there, and we'll. Last year I took my Ohio buck there, and we butchered it up together, and that was kind of a special moment. Preparing it ourselves instead of taking it to a processor. So I feel like in that way I'm respecting the animal. I'm doing it myself rather than, having someone else do it. I also view like a European mount or a shoulder mount as a way to respect the animal. I tend to not to take the cheap route with those, because I want whoever is working on it to do a really good job and show the animal for, all its glory. I take a ton of photos. I don't always show all those. I tend to keep a lot of them for myself. It's just different. I mean, it's purely opinion based, because some people would say like, oh, that's not respecting the animal. It's, you're taking advantage of it or something like that, or using it for recognition. But I don't know. I'm capturing a moment and a memory that I have with that animal. And it's just a way I feel like I am showing respect, or, that's how I view it.
I want to make this quick point right here. PSE Mobile, when we were talking about drones, he said you can't use drones in Michigan. was like 50-50, but yeah, thanks PSE Mobile for clarifying on that.
Yeah,
They talked about it here in Michigan, but they turned it down. And I know there was an article about a month ago that there's a lot of stuff we want to change in Michigan, and they turned basically everything down. Big surprise there. But again, thanks for that, PSE Mobile.
How old are the gentlemen that were making those decisions?
No, let's not go down that rabbit hole. I really don't want to. I think as hunters trying to deal with the emotional aspect of it, we get in like the actual moment of it, we're like, all right, here comes a deer. All right, now my brain's switching to, all right, I got to shoot this deer. When can I get the opportunity to shoot it? And then you see him run away for 60 or some odd yards, and you see him crash and burn, and you're like, oh, yes, I'm so happy, and you get thrilled. But what happened to me about 3 years ago when I shot my dream buck, I call him Fish Hook. He's an amazing deer. I saw him go 5 yards, and then he started to fumble. He laid down, and he's literally like 20 yards from me. And he's just looking at me, and he's panting, like grasping for air, just like. And then all of a sudden, I watch his head just float down to the ground, and he just like, and then passed away. I don't know how many hunters are able to experience that. I think watching that type of deer pass away in that aspect compared to watching them run 60 yards away and crash and stuff like that, how we generally majority of the time see them, hopefully. The instance that I had, that is a moment that's I will remember every detail about the hunt, but I'm going to remember every detail about how he passed, because it hit home with me in a way, because man, I'm really, it made me kind of read back into hunting where it's like, I'm taking the life of an animal, and I really got to make sure I'm doing this correctly, because even there's sometimes where you shoot a deer and you're tracking them for miles, so you don't watch them die. You're just going up and seeing them already dead, so you don't get that type of contact, or you're not watching it happen. I want to say I was fortunate enough, yes, to watch that happen. And I think a lot of hunters need to see, because we are taking the life and kind of humble ourselves, basically, in a way.
Yep, I definitely agree. I've got to witness a couple deer pass away like that, and it's different when you see it. I think having children also changes your outlook when you're harvesting these bucks. I know last year, that buck I took in Ohio, I was, jacked at first. It was the first buck on public in Ohio that I had taken. But then, I don't know, a minute or two went by, and then it dawned on me that was the first buck I would get to share with my son. Like, go take it home and show him, and that got me teary-eyed. And then it also has had me thinking of, like, okay, like, when I get him into hunting, like, how am I going to explain, taking the life of this animal to him? How do I want to portray that to him? And different things like that. It really puts things in perspective, I feel like.
It does. Backcountry PA Hunting and Fishing Podcast made a comment here stating, recovering deer with a drone should be last resort after all other methods are used. If the drone is needed, it should only be done by an organization as the PGC, not by a random person. I like that statement.
Yeah, I definitely think having like some sort of you have to be certified in order to fly drones commercially in that, but some type of organization like that where everything's kind of standardized, or at least like involved with the state or some sort, I think would help.
Like through the DNR.
Yeah, something like that. I think that would be a good idea for states. That way they can kind of control some things and make sure people aren't, using them illegally. As far as using it as a last resort, I think that would depend on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in Ohio, I've used dogs before to recover deer, and dogs are a great option. Because sometimes that is the right answer, is to get a dog. You never want to, you never want to have to, but sometimes it is the correct ethical answer in order to try and get to that animal quickly and not make sure, like, not spend days trying to track it and then you lose all your meat or something like that. Now, I will say, in an instance where maybe you're on a small parcel and you don't know your neighbors too well, and instead of going around, let's say you're surrounded by neighbors on all sides, well, instead of trying to go all of those neighbors and get permission, spend all night trying to get permission so you can take a dog and track wherever, maybe a drone in that instance would be a good idea, because then the drone could just fly without crossing over into people's yards or anything like that, locate the deer, and okay, now you know where the deer is, then you go up and knock on that person's door, and in that instance it might save you a lot of time and a lot of effort, and you don't have to trespass or put yourself in that scenario or anything like that.
PSC Mo Hunter made a comment. Oh man, when both my boys took their first deer, it was an emotional moment. I'll say this: I think when you have your kid, so. For instance, I had my dad when I shot my deer. Obviously, I was stoked about it, but I think he was more stoked about it than I was. So I think as the father figure or that person mentoring the younger person, to see that happen, I think you get more excited than they do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Or even like, it's different when it's like your kid, and like I'm so excited to have and share that moment with my son. But even with like a buddy, like if you're out trying to help a buddy or someone get a deer and then they get it and you're just like, yes, like I feel like in some cases get more excited than the buddy, right? You're like, I want to see this person succeed. They succeeded. That's awesome.
Yeah, my buddy just getting into, I'll make this comment here before we get into our next segment, is he just started getting into hunting. He's a part of the team here. His name's Dan. He's a big fisherman. He spends a lot of money into fishing gear. But I told him, Dan, you got to try hunting, but if you get into it, it's the healthiest version of crack, and you're going to spend almost 3 months' salary on one thing. So you're going to spend a lot of money on it, but you're going to love it. And he started getting into hunting with it. And he told me his first story about how he got his first deer and did it from start to finish all on his own. I was extremely happy for him. And now he's obviously wanting to get bigger and mature deer. So I'm excited to help him get into that level, and I'm excited to see where it goes with it. Hey, Deucer, let's talk into Law and Order real quick before we.
Law and Order.
Josh, let's talk about a little bit Ohio hunting before we let you go for the night.
Yeah.
What is the hunting seasons there in Ohio?
So some listeners might get mad at me because, like I said earlier, I'm not a big gun hunter. So I don't pay as much attention to the gun seasons. But
that's okay. I only hunt with a bow, so I don't care about any rifle hunters.
Archery season will come in last Saturday of September and then go out, I think, the first Saturday in February.
Wait,
so it's
the first Saturday of February?
Yeah.
That is a long effing season, man.
It's a long archery season. Hold on, I will confirm here the actual dates.
Dang. Wait, is that just from start to finish of the hunting season then?
For deer, yeah.
That is a long
deer
season.
Archery. So September 28th to February 2nd this year.
Wow.
Well, Whitetail Advantage definitely going to Ohio.
No kidding.
Sorry,
Ohio,
that was the first. Well, I guess it'll end on the first weekend in February because the second is actually a Sunday. Yeah. So it is a very long archery season. Now, I do like how our gun seasons are established. We don't have very long gun seasons, which I think is part of the reason why. Well, one, Ohio is a $1 state, and then two, we have gun seasons, but they're not very long, which I think helps our case quite a bit. So gun season usually doesn't start until around Thanksgiving, I believe, and then we don't have very long. And then you have like a late muzzleloader season. That's just about it.
PSC Mobile Hunter saying, I'm going to Ohio first week of November.
Is you that and everyone else? What's that?
Is that a good time to go, Josh?
It can be. As far as like action, yeah. It just depends on where you're hunting.
Our gun season sucks. Yeah, it does here in Michigan.
I bet there. I do one thing, like I said about Ohio, is I do like how they have their gun seasons established. I do think if other states close to us had their gun seasons like we do, like there are some states that would definitely be better than Ohio. But the first week of November, if you're coming
He's going
here,
to Lawrence County.
Lawrence County, is this public or private? You don't have to tell me that if you don't want to.
He's a private land. My best friend's son plays big bucks for sure.
Then yeah, first week of November is good. You should be fine. Now, I will say Ohio is like the first quote unquote big buck state from anyone coming south or anyone heading west from the eastern states. It's the first big buck state that you get to that has an over-the-counter tag that is not that expensive in the big picture. Other states are more expensive than us. So it is a state, like if you're hunting public, it does get hit hard. I think harder than most people think. Now, you can find spots where you're not going to see a lot of pressure, but there are some places that get quite a bit. And a lot of people want to come during the rut because that is typically, like if you're just hunting rut funnels and stuff, it's your highest odds of encountering a decent buck is during that time frame.
Do you have a lot of hunters generally there in Ohio?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit. If you're hunting public, well, I found this true in multiple states, especially like Kentucky too. That first week or two might get hit decently hard, but then it'll die off, and then it'll pick up again that last week in October, the first 2 weeks in November. Especially the first 2 weeks in November, things will pick up quite a bit. So the quote-unquote October lull, which isn't a real thing, that is when you'll probably see some of the least amount of hunters as far as private land goes, public land. Probably most private land too, because a lot of private land guys will stay out of their on their parcels. They'll just stay out and they won't go into the rut, which is how I grew up too.
Now, I feel like other states should take a blueprint basically from what other states are doing. And I think Illinois and Ohio are two great states for like, just talking about Michigan here, to look at and like, all right, what are they doing? That's just amazing. And how can we adapt it here in Michigan? Make this comment. Wayne Mail made a comment. There's moat out of towers than residents.
I think it was more out of towners.
Oh, there's more out of towners than residents. Oh, okay.
He's talking Ohio there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, during certain times of the year, there's probably more out-of-staters than there are residents.
But yeah, you guys, it sounds like you guys are in a good spot for rifle season, where it's like you're not right in the rut, but you're damn near pretty close to it, where it's like everyone gets kind of a piece of it.
Yeah, you'll still find. So I found like some of the more mature deer, you'll see they'll try and get those first few does that come in. So you'll see them be some of the first ones moving in like mid to late October when those cold fronts hit, and then again late in the rut time frame, around that like Thanksgiving time frame, you'll see some big ones up on their feet. But here, and we can't technically rifle hunt. I think the largest, it's all straight wall cartridge. So like the biggest thing we can use, I think, is like a 45-70.
Okay.
Now you can probably get some of those newer muzzle loaders, as like whatever they're called, those like new inline muzzle loaders, and get 300 yards out of it. But you can't quote unquote rifle hunt Ohio, which I think helps as well.
I got one question here before we start going into a rapid fire questions here is, for anyone that's going to go hunt Ohio or never hunted Ohio, what would be some like 1 or 2 things that you should tell them to start preparing for?
Define preparing for.
Like planning, scouting, what should they look for or anything like that? Like, all right, if you're going to come to Ohio, this is one thing that you should like make a mental note about.
Well, first you want to look at like time of the year, like when are you coming? So let's just use an example here. So most people, if they're traveling from out of state coming to Ohio, they'll probably come late October, early November time frame for like a rut hunt. I would say if you're coming in that time frame, if you've e-scouted, right, make sure you have multiple backups in case you run into pressure on public, because more than likely you are going to. So at least have a couple places picked out. That way you don't, kind of pigeonhole yourself into one area and then it's like, wow, there's like 10 guys here. Now what am I going to do? So have a backup for your backup. I would recommend. Weather. Let's just use first week of November. Weather can vary quite a bit. I think a couple of years ago we had a week where it was like in the 80s. It was hot. And then we've had other times where it was snowing. So weather can vary quite a bit. You definitely want to look ahead on your forecast if you're in that late October, early November timeframe, because it'll vary quite a bit. But those are, I think, the biggest thing. If you're coming to Ohio, make sure you have just backups, so that way you don't get stuck in one area or pigeonhole yourself to where you don't know what to do. I like to. I think honing in on places with a lot of habitat diversity is very beneficial.
Okay. Looks like there's a comment here by Wayne. Wait, clicked the wrong one. No, you can use up to a 50 cal straight wall cartridge, meaning 5110.
I've never even heard of that. Even though that was the thing. 5110. I'll have to ask my buddy about that.
PSC movie. It's in the 90s there now. Well, that sounds amazing.
It was. I'm in Southern Ohio. It was like 75 today. Felt fantastic. We just had this little cold front come in.
Oh yeah, it was nice today. It felt like, for me, my prime time for hunting weather is it's like 65, a little cloudy, maybe wants to rain a little bit, where I can wear shorts and a sweatshirt. That is my, like, let's get near a bonfire. That's my favorite type of temperature. And I'm a ginger, so I get hot very easily. That's why I love it. I can't stand the hot summer months. That's why I love fall even more.
Yeah. Get me to hoodie weather, and I'm pretty content.
Well, Josh, like I told you earlier, I got 5 rapid fire questions here I want to ask you before I let you go. Okay?
Yeah, shoot.
All right. First one: what is one state you want to hunt that you haven't hunted yet?
One state that I want to hunt. I have 3 or 4 Iowa points right now. I feel like Iowa's talked about way too much, but I do want to experience the quote-unquote Mecca, Iowa, at some point.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Iowa.
Yeah, there are other states that are on my list, but that's the one that'll probably hit first before some of the others.
Well, let me ask you this: what's one state where people don't talk about that you might want to go to?
Oh, I don't know if I can give that information.
I'll tell you mine, because it's a tie between Minnesota and Tennessee.
Tennessee is on my list. It's my in-laws actually live just south of Nashville, and I have some buddies that hunt Tennessee. It is definitely one that is on my list that I would agree doesn't get talked about too much.
Yeah, my wife's from Tennessee, and so we're trying to move down there in PSC, Michigan. Yeah.
Hey, I went mine hunting Southern Michigan. I think all these Michigan people are liars. Every time I go there, I see deer everywhere.
PSC Mo said Dakotas. That's a good one.
That would be a good one. Yeah.
The second here, you can't pick your state, but what state would you want to move to solely for hunting?
Solely for hunting, I would move back to Kentucky. I prefer Kentucky over Ohio.
Oh, really?
Yeah, especially public land.
Okay.
Ohio's public there's lots of access everywhere, whereas like Kentucky does a better job of managing their public pieces as well. And and lots of places that you might have like one parking lot or two. So there's very few access points.
The fourth, do you have any hunting superstitions? If so, what are they?
Superstitions. I do tend to wear, I feel like I have some like lucky shirts that I'll wear, or like a go-to outfit. Other than that, I don't have too many superstitions. So like an early season thing I like to wear, I'll wear like a black Under Armour long sleeve, and then just like a hunter green shirt. That was our actually very first Mobile Hunter Expo shirts. I like to wear that earlier in the season. I feel like it's good luck.
I know someone that has a lucky pair of underwear. I'm not going to say who, but if they're watching, they know who I'm talking about. All right, last and final question here. What is one thing that you can think of as we as a hunting community could do, that we could or should do to help improve the hunting community as a whole?
Oh, I think that is an easy question. This is one I thought about quite a bit. I think there's a very large issue of selfishness in the hunting industry and the hunting community, which I get it. A lot of people consider hunting their passion. With passion comes emotion, right? And people get very emotional when they're talking online with someone, disagreeing with someone, and a lot of people are, because it's their passion, right? I don't know if they feel entitled to certain things or what, but there is a lot of selfishness. There's a lot of like me statements or feeling, or in interactions, you can tell people think about themselves a lot before they think about others. So I feel like trying to reduce the selfishness and do things like for the community is something that I feel like can be done to help improving the hunting industry and hunting community. Like on a lot of our platforms, like on the Facebook group we run, the Mobile Hunter, or even Fueled by the Outdoors, we always say, like, give more than you take. Like, don't just post your platform, don't just post your YouTube videos. Like, you can do that, but you need to be contributing in some way to the group, as far as like engaging in conversations, giving people, tips or something, and just being interactive rather than just trying to take a listener or take a subscriber or something like that. We like to use the saying, give more than you take and leave it better than you found it. And that, I feel like if everyone kind of lived by those two sayings, the hunting community would be much better off.
I got no words with that. I agree with you 100% on that. Well, Josh, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate it. I hope everyone out there is watching. I hope they're appreciative of that as well. For anyone that wants to reach out to you or get to know you more and learn more about Ohio, how can they do so?
Yeah, so we didn't get into any of the stuff I'm really involved in, but I help run a couple of Facebook groups. You can easily find me on those. One is Fueled by the Outdoors. The more recent one is called the Mobile Hunter Facebook group. I'm on there primarily quite a bit. So anyone that would like to join that, feel free to do so. You can get a hold of myself or any of the other admins that run it, or Chris, that runs it as well. So you can find me there. I kind of co-host, I do co-host the Mobile Hunter Podcast. We also have a YouTube called the Mobile Hunter. You can, some of the deer I talked to, my Ohio bucks that I talked about, you can find a lot of those hunts on there if anyone wanted to watch them. And then anything as far as the Mobile Hunters Expo. So I am our chief of operations. So I do a lot of our logistics and operational stuff. So I co-run those with Chris and Rick. So anything involved with the Mobile Hunters Expo, you can find me there as well.
Okay. Yeah, when you were in Kalamazoo, I saw that you were here, and I was like, oh man, I didn't even realize I planned a golf outing that weekend. I was like, I really wanted to go, and you were texting me like, man, I really hope you can be there. I was like, and then my grandma came in town. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Worst timing. I didn't even think of it all. So
It was a good time. It was a good turnout. For anyone that's interested in Ohio, we've been talking about Ohio. We had an Ohio show. Like we started in Ohio, right? Because we're from Ohio. We started in like Brown County at the fairgrounds, and then we had one in Winchester, Ohio, and then this year and the year before we've been out of state. We are bringing the show back to Ohio next year. That'll probably be our biggest show we've ever done. It'll be towards the end of August. I actually have the dates here because I've already booked it. But it is August 22nd through 24th. It'll be at the Roberts Center over in Wilmington. So more details will come out about that as we plan things, but we have like 60,000 square feet there. Plan to have more vendors than we've had before, more interactive stuff, a bigger family zone. We're going to try and make it really, really fun.
Well, I really hope that we can get there. And next time you guys are in Kalamazoo, I'm not going to book a golf outing for that time again.
Yeah, you guys can come out and do some live podcasting there. That'd be cool.
Oh, that would be amazing, man. Well, Josh, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. We definitely have to stay in touch, man. I love talking. I love learning more about you and learning more about Ohio, man. So with that being said, I'll let you go for the night. I hope you have a great rest of your night. I hope you have a great rest of your week, brother.
Yes. Thank you very much for having me on, Brett. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Josh. I'll talk to you later, man.
Yep. See ya.
Oh, man, what a great guy. Down-to-earth guy. Love talking to him. And like I said, I felt so bad that when I saw that they were in Kalamazoo, and I was like, wait a minute. There's something going on that week, and realized, oh, yep, golf outing. And then I found out my grandma was coming into town. I was like, you got to be kidding me, man. So when Sunday came around, I was planning on going, but I was just so exhausted. But anyways, enough being said, I did forget to play this video. We do also have a new addition to the team. His name's David, so I want to play this quick little video for him.
3, 2, 1, bang.
Excited to have David a part of the team here. So, David, thank you so much for being a part of the team, like I said. Anyways, that's going to conclude another episode of the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. I just want to say thank you to everyone that's tuned in for tonight's show, episode 101, Tuesday, September 3rd. We'll be back at it again Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, continuing our week in Ohio. And, Deucer, before we leave, we got to tell everyone, put your corner slot machine. That's all we ask. Outside of that, see everyone next on Thursday's show. Deucer, take us out, my brother.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.